5 years ago, a friend of mine called Joe came to me with an idea. He said, what if we could get everybody to just give one? What if we could get 50 to 60 million people together on a certain day to gather around a cause? And he said that this idea had come to him because this spiritual fella had come to him and said, Joe, I want you to have this pound. I want you to think about it carefully and think about what to do with it. So Joe stuck it on his shelf, and for months he considered it. And then one day a really weird thing happened. He was sitting in his lounge, and as if from nowhere, a pound dropped into the middle of the floor. Slightly freaked out, he went back to his bedroom to see if it was there. It was no longer on his shelf. This pound had obviously got Joe's attention, and now it was grabbing mine. But his idea really bugged me. It bugged me because I knew the infrastructure wasn't available to bring everybody together in a cohesive way, to enjoy doing a big day of giving in real time. And when I thought more about it, I thought, why is this? Because we've got that kind of infrastructure in the rest of our lives, with eBay and Amazon and iTunes, all taking little bits of commerce from us. £1 here for a book on Amazon, bit of crap on eBay, song on iTunes. Booming, multi-billion-dollar businesses growing year on year, doubling year on year. And Facebook and Twitter with $100 billion and $30 billion valuations respectively, taking micro moments of our attention. Why is it that these markets are thriving in the mobile social economy, yet the giving economic system has almost no infrastructure at all, when we know inherently that there is so much more value for us in that system than in the market system? I've come to the conclusion that people haven't really had the message shared with them about the giving economic system and why it's so valuable. I want to show you a couple of things, simple things that I've learned. That's our £1. You have two choices with that pound. You can stick that into one of these worlds, Amazon, eBay, iTunes, maybe down Starbucks, you can get a little thing, and you will get an immediate gratification, an immediate compensation for that investment. Or you can invest it into the giving economy, and you don't get an immediate return, but it is an investment. See, first off, if you do it effectively, we can get the government to at least add 25p, adding the gift aid, the tax that you've already paid, onto your donation. Now, some of you will have heard of this and some of you won't, but £750 million each year from the giving we're already doing does not make it to charities because this is not easy enough. People are not filling out that gift aid declaration. That's the first thing. Second thing I learned is that when you talk to businesses, they're desperate to engage with their employees. They're desperate to understand what they care about so that they can meet them there, because they know that when people are engaged in the workforce, they're more productive and they help them grow more lucrative businesses. And actually, if you ask your boss, they're more than likely to be willing to add some kind of a match. Many bosses are willing to add £1 to your pound in a match on your donation. Now, we're already talking here, if my maths is correct, about £2.25 from an initial investment of £1. But where this goes nuts, and the most powerful part of this equation, is when we choose to share that giving behavior with those in our world. You see, we are the most powerful people in this equation, and if only one person, Facebook, Twitter, email, or people that you talk to, take an action because they've seen what you're connecting to, then that overall is £4.50. These kind of metrics are not available in the market-based system. It's only when we connect to stuff bigger than ourselves, to a purpose, that we have that kind of opportunity. Now, this all sounds very good and well, but many of you will have seen Brand's escapades over the recent weeks with Paxman, his manifesto, in the New Statesman. And I, for one, am glad he's drawing attention to these issues. I think it's important for us to think about the institutions that we operate within. And in his jester-like fashion, frolicking around, he gets us to ask some really big questions. But where I'm not persuaded by his argument is where he begins to talk about the businesses and the government having all the power in our equation. I'm absolutely convinced that it is our attention and our small actions every day that are most powerful. It's our actions and our influence that can really change this. And when we do things together, connected to what we care most about, that's when we can take that curated voice of the many unique voices and bring that to the tables of the powerful and make a real difference to how things work. The other problem is that we're Brits. We've got kind of stiff upper lips. Belts done up a little bit too tight. We don't like sharing our feelings, let alone talking about the things that we care most about and that we've given to. But the thing is, we send social signals every day to our friends and our family by the clothes that we wear, the car we drive, where we spend our time, spend our money, and give our attention. Why aren't we okay with the idea that sharing what we care most about into our world is important? This is something that we have to get over if we want to see the change that we so desperately need in this world. For millennia, tribes and communities have been giving in the cold light of day, not for personal gain, not to celebrate individuals who give the most, but because they understand the value of collective impact, being able to see the needs amongst them and be able to solve them, so even the least of them have what they need to be okay. The problem is that the current online giving platforms that we have do not represent the true value of giving. By focusing on the transactional value, we diminish the power of giving to little more than a market-based e-commerce transaction. I want to be part of a culture where every act of giving is valued equally, whether that's our time, our money, or even our blood. It's the act of relationship that's important, not the transactional value. And we have found that when we limit the ability to see the transactional values and focus just on the relational impact of attaching your story in a real way to this greater story, that in that restriction, our users find the freedom to give exactly how much they feel, not a cent more and not a cent less. Recently, I met a guy called Alex, and his son Harrison suffers from a disease called Duchenne muscular dystrophy. Now, I did not know that this disease even existed before I met him and his family and heard their story. In 10 years' time, Harrison is 8 at the moment, but in 10 years' time, he will likely die from this degenerative disease. And as Alex sat there and he told me this story, I was moved to act, and I did something, I contributed, and now I'm sharing that story with you. It's one of many stories I've come across that is important and valuable. Alex has set up a charity along with a bunch of researchers to try and find a cure for that disease before it ends his son's life and many like him. Now, it's not important how much I gave to that story, but I do think it's important that I have done something real to support that story, and I'm sharing it with you now. 4 years ago, I set out with a team of passionate people. There's probably been 100 people in total that have contributed to the journey that we've been on, trying to figure out the value of giving and how to do something scalable that will create impact. I've slept on floors, even in a cupboard. We've traveled the world, and I've been hanging out with brainiacs who have been teaching me concepts way above my IQ points, trying to take these fluffy and frilly ideas and put them into something substantial that can create a significant and systemic impact in the world that we're all living in. I'm proud to say that we've now built a platform called Givv. It's a social giving network that asks its members the question, what do you care most about? What is it that really bugs you in the world? What is it that makes you angry and you don't think is okay? And then what small action are you going to take today, tomorrow, to be a part of a real solution to that problem? Most importantly, it's in doing it together so that our tiny acts and our voice are not lost in the ether, but they can be curated together and actually have an impact at these power tables. Last week, well actually earlier this week, I was running down to the tube and a friend texted me saying, what can I do to help you with this talk coming here today to Salford? And in a rush, I just text her, well, it's probably the most important thing I've done, and I just need to make sure that I say my piece. And I rushed onto the tube and I sat down on the tube. And it was only when I sat down, a few minutes later, I thought over what I had just sent her. And the gravity of what I had said hit me. And tears began to roll down my face as I realized that standing here in front of you today connects back to thoughts and feelings I had had as a young teenager, learning about the story of Jesus Christ and his sacrificial love. I realized I wanted to be part of a real system and culture that could make it easier for us to act in a more loving way towards each other in this world. And I thought, even back then, I had this weird feeling in the back of my head that at some point I would stand in front of a group of people just like you and kind of offer myself for public service and say, if you're willing to invest your time, energy, and the money into the community that we're building, then I will do absolutely everything in my power to make sure that our voice is represented at the table of the powerful. The way I see it is we're at TED today. It's strapped with the idea of ideas worth spreading. And I think you've got three options, really. Either what I've shared with you is not an idea worth spreading, in which case I hope that you gain some inspiration from some of the incredible speakers that are coming next. Or you think it is a good idea that is worth spreading, but me and Givv are not really the guys to be trusted with your time and your money. In which case, I hope you can go find a group of people that will represent the voice of what you care most about at the tables of the powerful, crediting the value that it's our actions every day that really make the difference in this world. But thirdly, if you do think that it's an idea worth spreading, and for some reason you do trust what we're doing, then I want to be absolutely clear today that I want you to join our community. I want you to sign up and be a part of our active giving community, realizing that your voice amongst everybody else's is absolutely vital in changing how this system works. I have no idea at all whether God dropped that pound into the middle of the room or whether Joe's wife was smirking behind the sofa, lobbing it in the air, knowing that it would wind him up and get him thinking. But what I do know is it absolutely captured our attention, made us focus on the value of a pound, and that I realize now that Joe's idea of getting 60 million people to give a pound, the value was not in the 60 million pounds, but in each pound being a practical and real way to represent each of the 60 million voices. And I can guarantee you that if 60 million people came together around a specific cause, that voice would not be silenced. If you haven't heard anything else I've said today, then please just hear this. That our actions drown out the sound of our voices every single day of the week. And we have to take responsibility for the reality that our tiny actions, our attention, and where we place our money is shaping the future. But we can also take joy in the knowledge that when we give just £1 at a time, this future can be something that can be worth being a part of. Thank you for your time.